Hi, everyone. Kayla Rose with Faith, Purpose, and Freedom. I have Sheri Long with us today. She owns a business called Sugar and Spice. She also is part of a work experience program that helps with our young adults and our youth. Sheri, we are so excited you're with us today and excited to hear your story, hear what led you there, and how you are helping our young adults and helping people in the world today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about Sugar and Spice first and what kind of led you to your business and becoming an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. Well, Sugar and Spice it started as a teacher side hustle, making these delectable gourmet chocolate peanut butter balls. And it just evolved. It's like anything. I think it was a journey. My initial background was in education for almost 25 years. And my last 4 years, I was working out of the classroom, and I was working with young adults in an alternative high school diploma program. And I was on the life skills side of things. So I was working with these kids to find housing, set up bank accounts, further their education. And what I discovered is that the majority of the kids that I was working with were foster youth. They hit age 18 and they're just basically kicked to the curb.
Yeah.
It's heart wrenching. Great kids and just no guidance. Um, so we left California. We moved to Las Vegas, and this teacher side hustle that I had through the years became a full time endeavor. And those are the kids that I pull in to work with me. And they're
Awesome.
great kids. I work through the state's program in their work experience, and like you said, they have some sort of what they call a barrier to employment. Many of
Right.
them foster youth, anxiety, mental health issues, autism, and they come in and they're just incredible.
Yeah. That's awesome. And our youth are struggling. They truly are. People don't even realize the struggle they have. I often hear people say, our young adults, when we were conversating earlier, you said, too, that they don't want to work. And I don't think that's true always. I think they just have never been given an opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. I think ever since COVID, you hear that a lot. You hear, no one wants to work, you can't find quality people, and on and on and on. But yeah, I feel like there's this untapped resource here where these kids
Yeah.
do want to work and they do want to prove that they're capable, and they want to please, and they want to show you that they can do what anyone else can do. They just need a little more love put into it, and
Yeah.
they're amazing. I always say they kind of walk into this commercial kitchen, looking kind of lost and confused, and what am I doing here, and what do you want from me? And I usually say it's about 2 weeks in, I can stand back and these kids run the show. Like
Awesome.
they make the peanut butter balls, they make the boxes, they package them, they seal them, they invoice and pack them up for delivery, and it's amazing. It's amazing to watch their level of confidence grow like it does.
Right. And well, and I think oftentimes when they feel valued, and especially when you're working with foster children, a lot of them just didn't feel valued. They didn't feel loved. And we don't even know. Lord only knows what they have gone through their childhood, what mile markers were missed because in childhood development, if we don't hit those milestones, if we don't feel the nurture from a young age, that actually affects us all the way into our adult years.
It
And
does.
I mean, that is just, that development and emotional development matters through our life. So this gives you the opportunity to step in, and even though they might have missed those mile markers, you're now catching up and showing them a love that is going to propel them through life. That's awesome. Thank you so much for doing that because our
Definitely,
kids
yeah.
need it.
Well, and
So,
I think it's like, even as adults, if you get positive positive kudos for what you're doing or a job well done, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel appreciated. It makes you feel valued, and I think that's just human nature.
it
Um,
is.
so when these kids come in and they know what they're doing is appreciated and it's important and they're worth something, They need it more than anyone. But I think it's just human nature to want to feel like you're contributing in some way.
Right.
And I just, I always kind of joke that my classroom after 20 years just sort of morphed into a large commercial kitchen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teaching going on. It's just in a whole different environment.
Yeah, you are still teaching, and you are teaching in a way that is going to help them throughout life. I mean, they're learning in a kitchen, and well, I'm a mom to six. I spend a lot of time in the kitchen. So, and there's so much to learn in a business too. And who knows, maybe one of them will take on with their own business. And, so you're getting to guide them through all of these aspects of life that they didn't even know existed before now. So that's a
Right.
beautiful gift. You're truly being the hands and feet of Jesus, and that's what we're called to do in this world. So you get to be the hands and feet of Jesus in all of their lives. And that's beautiful.
Right.
So
And
with
there's words everywhere. They walk in and there's words. You are exactly where you are meant to be, and you are important, and you are awesome, and keep faith. And sometimes I just hope that these little subtle words will just get into them as they're working. So it's a blessing to get to have them on site.
Yeah, well, and I think too sometimes, we do have to teach them to be strong. And one of the biggest things I have in youth ministry taught kiddos is people are going to talk. People are going to say things. That's part of life. People are going to talk about you behind your back. They're behind you for a reason. And you don't have to let that toxicity in. You are able to walk. And I mean, I think that's people are too concerned about what people are doing in a negative way. It's never like, what are you doing in an encouraging way? So I think whenever we teach our youth to do this, this is actually how we change generations. We break generational curses. We pass on love to the next generation, and they're going to pass on love and pass on love. And eventually that hatred just kind of goes, and Satan is smashed beneath our feet. So
Completely agree.
yeah, I think that's great. So, with your work experience programs, explain a little bit about that, and then we're going to come back to your sugar and spice business.
So through the state, they have a vocational ed program, and the kids essentially apply through their program, and it's what they call a barrier to employment can be something as small as anxiety,
Yeah.
and it could be as big as a developmental disability. It varies from one kid to another. I call them kids. I call them my kids, even though they're 26 years old. Um, and so they apply through the state. They get a vocational ed counselor through the state, and then the state works with the local programming where they find these job sites for placement. And so then they also have a job coach through the local organizations. So they've
Oh,
got their job counselor through the state, and they've got their job coach through the local programming, and then they come and they work with me. Usually they're in 10-week blocks, and
okay.
they, like, for my business being food related, they learn everything with food handling, sanitizing, packaging, all of the health department regulations that we have here, which are a lot because of all of our tourism here in Las Vegas. We have very, very strict health department
Oh,
guidelines.
right.
um, so they're learning everything, and then after that 10-week session, the goal is for them to be able to be employable. And sometimes they want to go into something that might be food related. I had one kid that wanted to go into working at a pizza place. I had another one that really wanted to work at the market nearby his house, the local grocery store. And then other times, they might say, you know what, food just isn't my thing. I'd rather do something else. And they can try another work experience program that might be office related or might be something with animals. So it's really a collaboration between the businesses, the organizations that find the work sites, and then the state's voc ed programming.
The community there is just beautiful. Just the way everybody is working together to make this happen is genuinely beautiful. Can you just tell me, just because I know that there's a lot of people that come in contact with our youth that might and our young adults that may need assistance, just you were discussing how earlier, whenever we were talking, how they have different programs. What are the programs for our youth that might come out of foster care or our struggling youth that would give them the ability to get out in the community, to get out in the public?
Well, I mean, I know that it varies by state, and I'm only familiar with California and Nevada,
Right.
but I do believe these programs are everywhere. Sometimes it's just a matter of being resourceful and seeking them out. I think the kids that are able to really use their resources are and take advantage of what's available to them are really the ones that can they just get that extra boost. I know that there's the independent living programs, or when they leave foster care, they are provided some sort of funding after age
Mhm.
18 to assist with rent or living skills. That I mean, when most kids have their parents still, these kids are kind of left to their own devices. So I know they have to really look and find out what kind of resources are available financially. And a lot of times that's something that the caseworkers and the social workers or even the probation officers should be sharing with them. But if they don't know, which we have had situations where they're not aware of it, that I think the youth need to be able to advocate for themselves and say what
Yeah.
kind of resources are available to me. And then, you know, Las Vegas, people think of it as Sin City and lights, but we really have a very, very strong foundation for these kids. We've got a lot of groups out here that will support. If they move into an apartment, they'll provide furniture. They'll provide, groceries if need be. I'm on the board for an organization where we provide housing, short-term housing, so the kids can get on their feet and then find an apartment if that's where the direction they want to go. So I think the kids have to just be their own advocate for wherever they
Yeah.
are and really ask, what's out there for me. And sometimes it takes digging, things won't fall in their lap, but I think it's, using your resources and just knowing that God's going to guide you to the right people when the timing is right.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think that's helpful just because some people might not even realize there are resources. I did not realize that some resources were available until I just started digging. And to be honest, a lot of people hate AI. I'm going to tell you, I talk to AI like it's my best friend in certain
Thank you.
situations. Because I homeschool my children and they are allowed to use AI. However, they're not allowed to use it to cheat, to say, oh, what's, an algebraic question and ask for the answer. They're not allowed to do that. However, they are allowed to use it to say, can you show me the work of how I would get to this answer and look at it and understand it. And now I'm going to make you another problem very similar to it so that you can show me that you actually learned what you were doing. They can use AI is a great tool, and that is how I have learned. People have come to me with legal advice. I actually have a friend that was going through some things with her kids, and she came to me and she was just asking me for advice, and I'm like, I don't know. So I started talking to Chat GPT like it was my best friend, and I'm telling you, it was just giving me law codes that were broken, all these things, and I'm like, here you go, and I sent it over to her, but it assisted her a lot. And then just even advocacy programs. Oh, I mean, a lot of people don't realize that many of the advocates, there is an advocacy program for everything. I don't care what it is, look it up, you're going to find it. So even resources like this, just use AI, look it up, and it's going to give you a list and start making the phone calls, start reaching out, emailing, doing what you have to do. I think you're right that people have to be strong enough to advocate for themselves because let's be real, nobody advocated for me. I had to do it for myself. And so we do have to teach them to be strong enough to say, and it's okay to ask for help. We all need help at some point in our life. We're not just given life on a platter and here you go.
Right, right. And it's a good learning tool. I mean, we could go on
Yeah.
AI on a whole different topic because, being a former teacher, I probably wouldn't be very popular because I would have been one that would have allowed my students to use AI. I feel like It's a tool that's out there. Why not let them use it? So I don't know how popular I'd be
Right.
if I were still in the classroom, but it's a good learning experience. You know, these kids learn to get out there and research and advocate, and like you said, things aren't served on a silver platter, so sometimes you do have to get out there and push and find the right people. And I think most people want to help. I think deep down most people want to help. And if you know, I always tell my own kids, stay humble, because if you can ask someone and say, look, I don't know what I need, or I don't know how this works, or I don't understand it, can you help me? You know, more often than not, people will. But I think that's a skill in and of itself for them to learn too.
Right. Well, and I struggled with this with my own son. I'll throw him under the bus. He's used to it. They hit those teenage years and
Know everything.
teenagers know everything. Absolutely everything under the sun. You can't tell them anything. And it's funny because now he is getting ready to be a dad, and it's funny how he'll come to me and he'll be like, "Well, what do you think about this or this?" And they're considering, rather than renting, buying their first house. And I'm like, honestly, I think that's a great idea. If you buy something that you could resell later if you wanted to move. Because otherwise you waste a lot of money renting, and rent is crazy in Ohio. So, I mean, it's amazing how you can see that shift, and they learn to come and ask. And, I would much rather sit and have that conversation and hear, where you might have thought, let's go through and weigh out the good and the bad
Hmm.
rather than the arguing. And, if you go at somebody like everything, no one wants to help you.
Hmm. Very
If
true.
you if you're
And
humble
that's a
about
skill
it.
to learn. You know, I think
Right.
that's a skill that these kids need to learn, is that one, it's okay to ask for help, and two, it's okay to not know what you need, or you know, I think that everyone likes to be an expert at something. And just even owning a business, I have found that you know, I've needed experts in things. I needed an expert in QuickBooks, and I needed an expert in shipping chocolate, and I needed an expert in, you know, when I was building a kitchen, I needed a building expert. And I think if you talk to these quote unquote experts, and you explain, look, I don't know this, can you help me learn it? You know, everyone's happy to share their knowledge. Well, they feel important. I'm an expert in this. Of course, I'll share my knowledge. So I
Right.
think that's important for the kids to know, that if they find the right people and they don't act like they, you know everything, there's a lot to be had there.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, let's be real. If I tried to ship chocolate, by the time it gets to you, you're never going to want to eat it. Terrible idea. I mean, but you're so, and I don't know, that any of us, nobody knows all the answers. And we all have to be able to ask. And if someone is upset with you because you ask a question, that's more about them and what's going on within them than it is about you asking the question. Because I've been there in my life where I've asked a question, at a workplace, and just, the manager just completely snap on you and treat you as if you're less than for asking a question. And I know I can't be alone there, but honestly, I wish I'd have known then what I know now, because that was more about them than it was about me. I didn't know the answer. It wasn't my fault. And that's where we have to teach our youth, like, don't let it get in you and think everybody's going to treat you that way.
Hmm.
That just means next opportunity, move on to the next person, and that person may have even better advice than the other person was going to give you anyway.
Agreed.
So I definitely think that yeah, that is a good point to teach our kids. I wouldn't have even thought of that. So it's a huge point to teach them. Okay, so I kind of want to go backwards a little bit and just, talk about sugar and spice and how you got started. I know it was just small, but what was the thought? Like, did God just put it in your mind? What made you actually just go, huh, I'm going to make chocolates? That's what I think I'm going to do.
Yeah, I know. I always say, if somebody told me 10 years, 15 years ago, you know, be in Las Vegas and own a chocolate company, I would have been like, no, I'm teaching third grade and today we're doing multiplication, you know? um, yeah, and it's so funny how it's just, you know, you end up on a journey and that's just where you're meant to be. Um, well, like I said, it was a side hustle while I was teaching because, you know, every teacher usually has a side hustle to make extra money. And
Right.
we moved to Nevada, and I was working for a company doing community outreach. And I was overseeing their charitable giving side. And long story short, it was just dirty. It wasn't charitable giving. It wasn't. There was nothing about it that was kosher. And I thought, I am working for something that's just doesn't go along with what I believe. They're not doing this, you know, for the right reasons. They're not doing it legally. And I literally quit on the spot. And I can still tell you exactly where I was when I was driving home from that, thinking, my husband's going to kill me. I now have no job, but this is God telling me to turn this teacher side hustle into a full time endeavor. I mean, I remember exactly where I was driving when all of this was going through my
Of
head.
course. Yeah.
And I truly believe, like, had it not been for this job, I wouldn't be where I am today. So, as much as horrible as that job was, I think that was just God setting out the stepping stones to get me where I needed to be.
Right.
Because we wouldn't have left California, and I wouldn't have, you know, moved to Las Vegas and said, okay, I'm going to own my own business and I'm going to make chocolate in the hottest part of the whole country and it's July. You know,
Right.
that wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so I think it was just, I truly believe it was God's plan. Like, I'm going to put you in this job. It's not going to work out. And then you're going to realize what the next step has to be. And, that afternoon, I was on the phone with the health department, finding out what do I need to do to get licensed. You know, I made appointments with local small business organizations. Like, how do I'm a teacher. I don't know how to run a business. Like,
Right.
and you know, and I did exactly what I was talking about. I found my resources for small business, and I found people that were experts, and I found people that would want to answer questions and help. And you know, it started out small, and it's grown ever since. And I went from a shared kitchen space to my own kitchen space. And during COVID, I was forced to build a website, you know, things that I never thought I would be doing.
Right.
And again, I found an expert that could help me. You know, how do I do this? I'm not an IT person. And, you know, things that, you know, thank goodness for YouTube. And, and, you know, like
Yeah.
I said before, like chat wasn't even that, you know, wasn't even, you know, a big thing with, you know, when COVID was around. That's newer. But just using
Right.
resources to learn how to do all this.
Yeah.
Um, and it's grown since then. And I went, you know, I would start out with one kid working in the kitchen to five to six, you know, and, uh, you know, I mean, I truly feel like my prayers are always just bring me the right people at the right time, you
Yeah.
know, and when I had to start shipping chocolate, I'm like, how does one ship chocolate from Las Vegas? It's 110 degrees, you know, and
Right.
I mean, you know, and oh, my FedEx rep shows up, you know, and
Right.
you
Yes.
know, I mean, when I was doing a build out for a kitchen, and I don't know the first thing about, you know, how do you build out a kitchen, and you have all these, you know, rules from the city and from the health department. This lovely
Right.
man down at the city office just became my angel. I mean, I would walk in there just crying, being like, "Oh, what I'm doing," and he would walk me through it. And you know, I feel like the right people come at the right time, and that's always what I'm praying for. And it has now since grown. We ship from the website, and we are in the hotels and the casinos and independent grocers and coffee houses, and we're in some locations, some well-known coffee bean and tea leaf locations on the strip and in the airport. And the goal now is just to keep growing and move beyond Vegas, and these kids help make it happen. So
That is awesome. So you have definitely, hit the valleys, you've hit the lows, and you've hit the struggles, and you just had to keep pushing and never give up. And I think that is the part that is just exactly what everybody needs to hear. In business, you're going to struggle. There are downs, there are lots of valleys, and you have to be willing to overcome and push through it even when it's
right.
not easy, because it doesn't, I think for some people, even for myself, when I started coaching, I can remember just being like, I'm never going to be like that guy or that guy or that lady. Like I'm never going to be able to do that. And for me, I got injured at work. I've been coaching for over a year now, and I love it. And I've helped people become authors, and I've helped some of my clients build websites and, you know, affiliate marketing. And then suddenly I got injured at work in March, and God said, the podcast. I had no idea what he was even talking about. And I'm just like sitting here in my Bible, like, what are you talking about? You can't find the word podcast in here anywhere, for the record. It's not. And so I just sat there, and my biggest thing has always been I want to bring love and unity to every community. I know it sounds corny, but that I've always said that. And most people know 50 Cent, and he had a saying that went something similar, but I always tell people I'm going to save the world or I'll die trying.
Well, you know what?
And
It's Mother. I think it was Mother Teresa said that. Um, what was it? Not everyone can do great things, but everyone can do small things great.
oh, that's perfect. Yes. And that's exactly, and I started this podcast, and I have recorded with a lot of amazing every one of you that I have had the opportunity to connect with has been a blessing in my life and taught me something about endurance. And that's exactly what I needed. And now I'm like revamping my website and my coaching, and I mean clients are coming in and everything, all these doors are opening, and I was like, Oh, I'm supposed to come home to my family. Traveling is actually my thing. We're actually going to be doing this. And you start seeing doors open. I'm nowhere where I want to be yet, but I'm where God wants me. And we have to be okay with that. Like,
Right.
that's where we have to trust. And it's the moment you're like, I'm where God wants me to be. That's the striking point. So I think it's just a blessing to see where you started, what you've had to work through. I mean, you were a third grade teacher doing multiplication, and now suddenly you're multiplying chocolate all over the country. So that's just
That's
beautiful.
right. Funny how things change.
And you know what? That is amazing. And kudos to you for reaching out to those resources, not being afraid to ask the questions, and, going above and beyond to make it happen. But you didn't only make it happen for yourself. Look at all of the people you're helping along the way. So my next question would be, where all do you ship to, and can listeners order and have it shipped to them?
Absolutely. The website is sugarandspicelasvegas.com, and we ship nationwide, and I have mastered chocolate shipping like it's nobody's business. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, everything is in ice or on ice and thermo wrapped, and it arrives beautifully. So we are always happy to ship out anywhere. And then we are on Instagram and Facebook, Sugar and Spice. And yeah, I'd love for anyone to try them out. We just started it was a savor the flavor, and we get a lot of repeat people. Like, I guess the number one word that I always hear is, oh, they're so addicting, and it's got such a negative connotation to it. But people will very often people will actually come to Vegas, buy them in a hotel, and then they end up ordering online, and I ship, and I get a lot of repeat people that way. So we have a Savor the Flavor where it's just auto ship every month. You get your box of chocolate peanut butter balls right to your door.
Awesome.
So for anyone that likes chocolate and peanut butter balls, or chocolate and peanut butter, they're very different. Especially being from Ohio, people are like, "Oh, are they like Buckeyes?" And I am a Californian, so I didn't even know what Buckeyes were until somebody explained it. And I was like, okay, yeah, well, whatever. Well, they're different than Buckeyes because they're crunchy in the middle. There's like a surprise crunch in the middle. So they're not Buckeyes, but I did learn what Buckeyes are through doing this. It became, something that I had never known about because I'm a Californian. So they're very different. But for anyone that likes the chocolate and peanut butter combination, they are definitely something to try out. So it's sugarandspicelasvegas.com.
All right. So I will actually put that in the description too, just so and if you will send me the Instagram and so that we can just link all of that so that way, people can definitely help. Do you do anything with affiliate for like teenagers selling the chocolates or anything?
Oh my gosh, what a great question. I love that. You know what? I don't, but I'm like, I mean, you heard, I'm open to anything. So that would be really something that might be fun to explore.
Yeah, or even, you know what? Even just like everyone does some kind of, I mean, we have Girl Scout cookies, we have fundraisers to sell. So we could look into fundraising. That would be awesome. Just, something different because, yes, in Ohio, Buckeyes are the big thing, but something with a crunch in the center, people would be like, oh, so everybody
Yeah,
loves the crunch.
I'm always open to new ideas. I mean, I love to get the product out there and I love to get the mission out there. So I am always open to trying new things and new ideas because why not? It's worth it. And everything's worth a shot. So yeah,
Right.
I'd be willing to explore something fun like that.
See, and that's awesome. And that's how business works because although we don't always do everything we're asked if we're doing, it's not that we can't be like, oh, well, that's a good idea. I might try that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And, I think that's just something amazing for our youth to learn and anyone really, because I don't care if you're 50 years old, you can start a business. You are never too old to start your own business. Actually, my husband's 50 years old. He has loved photography his entire life. And I was like, so you have a camera and a computer. Why aren't we doing more with it? Because, we do. I think we all get sick of being stuck in the loop of just go to work, come home, go to work, come home, go to work, come home. And, we're all born with gifts and talents, and yours aren't going to be the same as mine. That's what makes the world go around. But when we support each other, that's what makes the world go around.
For
So,
sure.
yeah,
Definitely.
definitely. And what encouragement would you give to any of our youth or listeners before you go? Just encouragement, or what would you say to them?
Oh gosh, there's so many things I would say. I would start out by saying that you are loved. You are loved. And even when you don't feel it, you are loved. Um, and to never give up, um, that nothing is permanent. Um, I tell my kids all the time, try anything. Nothing's permanent. Give
Definitely.
things a shot. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I always say be humble. And oh gosh, sometimes resilience really pays off.
Yep.
Don't give up. I mean, I think of when I started my business. I remember when I was first looking for a kitchen. I remember talking to a real estate agent that said, the rules in Southern Nevada for kitchens and the way the water is and the grease and what you have to install and and she just went on and on and on. She said no small business can do it. Basically you're just, it's not going to happen. And I always think if I listen to her, I wouldn't be where I am today. Because
Mhm.
what I did was I kept looking, I kept researching, and I found out there are ways to do it. And there were some hoops to jump through, but I worked with the city and I worked with the water district, and I got everything set up the way it should be and up to code. And so sometimes, if I would tell these kids, if you really have a dream or you have a passion, um, and you can't get in the front door, then try the side window. Just
Ah,
keep
and we
pushing.
are not telling you to go break in a house, for the record.
No, and I'm not telling you to go break in a house, but if you know there's something you want to do and someone tells you no, don't let anyone be a dream killer.
No
Um,
means the next opportunity.
that's right. That's right. If someone gives you a no, you're that much closer to a yes.
Yeah.
And these are all things that I've had to learn along the way. And I would love for kids to, we're based on business, and I'd love for kids to become entrepreneurs or take an idea to a new level, or take their skills, what they're good at. I'm really good at XYZ and put it into play somehow. So I feel like everybody is given a God given gift and they just need to share it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that is so true that I mean, we are all born with gifts. And a lot of my clients, I've had come to me and they know they just have this itching for more in their life and they know that there is more, but they feel stuck. And sometimes it's just overcoming that, overcoming the fear. Who cares what people are going to say? Because people are going to talk when you're doing good things. Unfortunately, it's part of life and people will say things, but you have to push past that because chances are they're afraid to do what you're doing. That's why they're talking. You have to trust God. If God brought that vision and that dream to you, that's between you and God. Nobody else was invited. You have to just push through the hard times. It's not always easy.
Yeah, I think it's also important to surround yourself with like-minded people.
Yeah.
I think if we put ourselves with people that don't have the same outlook or the same projection or the same positivity, then they have a tendency to bring you down. So I think it's important to surround ourselves with like-minded people and people that will lift you up. You know.
Oh, yeah. When you've outgrown a table that you're sitting at and you can feel yourself just like, I don't belong here anymore. And you're just this positive thinker, encouraging, and everyone else is kind of draining from you. It's time to move to another table.
Hmm.
Get up and find a new table to sit at. And, that's something I've taught my kids is just you have to be resilient. And sometimes it hurts. It hurts to get up and leave the table that feels familiar, but you weren't even that comfortable sitting there anyway.
I
A
love
lot
that.
of times when we leave our comfort zone, we realize that our comfort zone wasn't really that comfortable anyhow. So it's okay to walk away.
I love
And
that.
we definitely have to. Well, hey, I definitely have loved having you today, Sheri. You have brought so much joy. Just everything you're doing is a blessing. And thank you for being the hands and feet of Jesus. We will
Thank you.
definitely be sharing sugar and spice below. Make sure everybody goes and places an order and praying over your company, your business, and your goals, your mission, and that all of the right children are just led into your life. The right youth are led into your life, and you can continue to encourage them, guide them, love them, and praying over them also that they pursue their dreams, move mountains in this world. Hey, thank you so much for
Absolutely.
being with us.
Thank
And
you.
everyone, we love you all.
Thank